What is up, you guys? Welcome to ThoughtLoad Thursday. I'm your host, Tyler, and today I'm going to kick things off with a quote we've probably heard a lot. And it's the saying that is, under pressure, you don't rise to the occasion, you fall to the level of your training. Now, this doesn't just apply to the athletic arena or sports in general. It can apply to giving business presentations or any other career path. When we're under pressure or something that gets us out of our comfort zone, we don't rise and take advantage of the opportunity and whatnot. We always come back down to our highest level of preparation. And so I love this quote because it really talks about the process that we put in place, the amount of time and effort we spend into our preparation and our training for whatever it is that we do. And having that baseline, or I guess ceiling, I would call it, gives you that safety net of where you're going to come down to under times of your greatest discomfort and your greatest pressure. And so I wanted to offer a new approach to a goal system or a training process system that differs a little bit from what we've talked about here in the past on the podcast. We've mentioned a lot, and I'm sure you guys have heard of or somewhat familiar with SMART goals, right? And so that acronym, for a little review, is specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and time-bound. And so we define these parameters as they pertain to our goal that we're setting, and it helps ensure that our objectives are attainable within a certain time frame that we set out. I think SMART goals are great. It gives a little bit more specificity and a plan of action as well. But there's a new approach. I guess I wouldn't call it new. There's another approach that I just came across that I wanted to offer and share. And so This came through the Monday Momentum email that I've talked about, that Google Chrome extension that is pretty valuable, and especially when things like this come across, it's really cool to be able to share this and offer another perspective, another approach, just another tool that you guys can evaluate and see if it's something that can work for you, right? So getting into it here. This PACT approach, P-A-C-T, is again from James Clear. Now, I did an episode a little while ago about James Clear's 2-minute rule. So go check that episode out if you haven't. Again, he's the author of Atomic Habits and a few other books that I do not know what the titles are, unfortunately. But amazing author, really like his ideas on habit formation, and really talking about the system that we have. And so some of the things that he talks about here in this PACT approach, and I'll define it here in a minute or two, but he talks about that most of us, we know that having goals really isn't quite enough just to make them appear or just to be manifested into existence. And what we really struggle with is the system that we have in place, our training plan, our plan of attack. And something I've talked about before, because I do this way too much, is we often take a really exorbitant amount of time to write these big lists of all the habits that we want to get rid of and the habits that we want to form. We put our routines down to the smallest detail of, a little exaggerating here, but all the brush strokes that you're going to have when you brush your teeth, right? We spend all this time creating these habit lists, these routines, and all of these processes that we want to implement in really one sitting. And then we just expect it to happen. We expect that we're going to follow through with all of those things from day one, and then we're off to the races. But here's the problem with that. That approach doesn't really work for a lot of us. And having a successful system, which I believe, and James Clear says, is a sustainable one, isn't simply just planned overnight. And so when we want to implement change in our lives, we have to understand the nature of that change. And so real transformation happens by taking those small, seemingly insignificant steps. I have read this time and time again, and hopefully I haven't said it time and time again. Otherwise, you're probably going to turn this off right now. In one general direction for just a consistent period of time. And so when you have enough attention and time, that system that you're creating will evolve and it will help you become more of what you want to be, and it'll help you do more. But as for today and right now, you can use your present knowledge to choose simply one action, then you do that again tomorrow. And this is how we slowly develop our system over time. And the cool thing about that is when you do it for long enough, the action of adding a brick to your empire each day or another layer of foundation to your house is fulfilling enough that you're no longer trapped and focused on what the end result is, what the outcome is. And the system you've built becomes your source of satisfaction, what you pull from. So now let's get into what the PACT system actually is. And so what he says here is he does reference SMART goals. He says, while SMART goals have a place for achieving short-term tasks, they aren't made for the long-term, complex ambitions we often have in mind. Why? Learning something new is rarely a linear process. Achieving a specific milestone could end up taking you 3 times as long as you expected. The SMART system also focuses more on outcomes than what is fundamentally within our control, which is our presence and our process. I really like that analogy there. Whether you're pivoting to a product design career, taking up climbing, or learning Chinese, the PACT approach helps us integrate our goals into our daily routine in a mindful and sustainable way. And so here's how and why it works. So the P is for purposeful. Does your goal align with your vision for this year or beyond? The better alignment, the greater likelihood of it sticking. Note that a goal doesn't have to be practical to be purposeful. Switching careers or building a business may not be relevant to your daily priorities, but they're still worth pursuing. So when I look at this purposeful part of PACT, it really aligns with what I talked about last time here, the goal versus the mission. Does what you're trying to do or does your current system or your current effort in training reflect what your life's mission is or what you feel is purposeful in your life? If not, that goal's not going to stick. It's not going to be integrated into the system that you're trying to create. So having something that is purposeful is the first step to having something that is going to be sustainable. And so now the A is actionable. What step can you take today that will move you in the right direction? Creating the perfect roadmap or researching all of your options can keep us from making any real progress. 100%. I am a victim of that. The PACT approach helps us shift our efforts from research and planning to taking action. Recognize that missteps will naturally be a part of the process, and that's okay. With more action comes the clarity you need to refine your approach. So the A here makes total sense to me. I kind of synonymize, yeah, that's a word, that with showing up, right? Part of his 2-minute rule is simply showing up. Like, let's stop wasting time ironing out every small detail that is literally paralyzing us from taking any measurable action to what it is that we want to accomplish. And without action, you have no system. So there's nothing happening when you spend all this time researching and planning to figure out the perfect thing, or to make a finance analogy, since this is where our main current series is for the podcast, is don't get lost in the minutia of small percentage points over interest rates, or what is the best savings account I can get, because in the long game that doesn't really matter. what needs to happen is having the actionable step of doing something to start managing your finances rather than getting bogged down in the research and planning phase and quitting, right? So I love this actionable here. The C stands for continuous. How might you make that action simple and repeatable so you can do it every day this week or every other day? Creating a system of continuous action is the easiest path to building momentum. The more flexible you are with the action itself, the more flow you'll experience. 3 push-ups with perfect form, 5 minutes of meditation in the morning, 10 minutes of experimenting with your video editing software. Start tiny the first week or two and refine later. Again, this is just preaching towards the sustainability, the act of showing up, making something that you can streamline, that is simple, doesn't take up a whole lot of time. One of the pitfalls that I had when I was spending all this time researching and planning all of these routines and habits I wanted to form is I would have all of this time, like I would look at meditation or I would look at a workout, be like, okay, 20 minutes, 30 minutes, 20 minutes of reading, 20 minutes of looking at something educational or whatever. And before I knew it, I've got like a 9-hour routine. It's like, that is no way sustainable. So that's great there. Continuous is the C. And lastly, the T is trackable. When it comes to tracking your goals, the rule of thumb is to keep it as simple as possible. That said, if numbers and spreadsheets are your thing, do what makes you feel alive. Tracking your goal is most efficiently done by ticking it off a simple yes or no. You want to record this somewhere you look often, or you can easily access, like an app, personal planner on your Momentum dashboard. So there's a plug for the Momentum dashboard extension. So looking at trackable, I definitely agree and think that being able to track is something that we like. We like the instant gratification, right? If we had it our way, we could set a goal and achieve it that day, when in reality it might take 6 months to achieve. But we want that instant gratification. Tracking is what gives you that instant gratification. You can say, boom, yes, did it. Check. You just added something else. You made it one day stronger in your system implementation. So you can hold on to that. You can find that gratification in simply saying, yes, I did this. And be real with yourself. If you don't do it, check no. It's important to look back and see, hey, you know what? I didn't do this day. And you can think about, okay, why didn't I do it? Was it a mindset thing? Was it a poor time management thing? And you can really start to hone in on your weaknesses when it comes to implementing new habits into your system and forming your system. And it's simply done just by tracking. And so I even take this T one step further. I think I've done 2 episodes now on the random intermittent reward system. And so just a brief summary of that again, I have 4 things that I want to track that I make sure that I do. And when I do those things in a day, I get to spin the random number wheel, and on a 1 out of 3 chance, I can win a predetermined reward. So again, this is another great way to implement tracking into your system. And it also makes it stick more because of the whole random intermittent reward philosophy or theory, or I don't know, fact, maybe at this point. It's an extra thing to add to your tool belt. It's more powerful to have things stick. So again, tracking can be used in a variety of ways and has a variety of positives. And so that's the PACT approach. It's very simple. Everything makes sense to me. I do agree that it seems that it is a little bit better than the SMART system because, again, it focuses on that system, right? Going back to the quote we started with, under pressure, you don't rise to the occasion, you fall to the level of your training. So when we have a good system in place, when we train ourselves to track and hit the yes or no box as we're developing the system, when we come under pressure of maybe certain triggers that can bring about bad habits that we're eliminating, we can, when we're faced under time management stress, when there's other things added to our plate, when we have a great system that is sustainable, that has been tested, and we are continuously implementing it day in and day out, or every other day, or something on a continuous basis, when we're faced with those challenges, we just fall back to where our training is with our system. And so that, again, that's the PACT approach. Something I thought was really interesting, worth sharing here. And as I wrap up today, it's from James Clear. Great quote here. You'll see it's very similar to the one I started off with. But here you go. He said, "You do not rise to the level of your goals. You fall to the level of your systems." And with that, we'll close out today's Thought Load. And as always, begin the duel, win the day.